Thank you for joining us tonight. You're now with me, Shel Shamnato, for TVS Nightline. We begin with the headlining stories. With a few days left before Ramadan, both the Kuching North City Commission, DBKU, and Kuching South City Council, MBKS, has decided to cancel this year's Ramadan Bazaars. In a statement released on Wednesday, DBKU said that the decision was made after taking into considerations the current COVID-19 situation in the state. Moreover, the move was in view of a high-risk exposure to close contacts, which may result in the likelihood of the spread of COVID-19 infections, which can hamper the government's efforts to eradicate the epidemic.
Jadi kita telah maklumkan kepada pihak-pihak yang telah pun nak terlibatkan diri. Jadi telah pun maklum semalam dan mereka bersetujulah untuk tidak melibatkan secara bazar. Namun demikian ada sebahagian pada tempat-tempat telah pun memohon secara private, secara persendirian. Jadi kita pun sekiranya mereka melibatkan DBKU, kita pun akan menarik balik keputusan kita untuk tidak membenarkan mereka menjalankan aktiviti bazar Ramadan. Namun demikian secara individunya kita tidak ada autoriti untuk menahan usahawan kita menjalankan perniagaan mereka. Namun demikian pendekatan pihak DBKU pada hari inilah untuk memberi nasihat kepada semua pengusaha-pengusaha makanan kita yang menjalankan gerai perniagaan supaya mereka sentiasa mematuhi garis panduan yang disediakan oleh pihak SDMC.
Earlier last month, the DBKU approved on the opening of Ramadan Bazars under strict SOP in 3 areas, namely Sato, Samara and Sukmaria. Similarly, MBKS has also cancelled its Ramadan Bazaar at Studong Community Market, citing precautionary measures to avoid crowds and curb the spread of COVID-19. Now, purchasing food for breaking fast in the time of Ramadan will not be the same this year in light of the decision for Ramadan Bazaars to be opened has been cancelled. However, this was not stopping those who are fasting this year. Through TVS's survey, various opinions were felt amidst the closure of Bazars this time.
Baiknya dari segi mengekang ataupun menyekat daripada penularan penyakit yang kita tahunya agak amat bahayalah.
Kesianlah juga dengan peniaga-peniaga kecil nak. Biasa yang hilang pekerjaan. Sebab PKP tu pun banyak kawan-kawan yang hilang pekerjaan bah. Jadi bilanya option untuk berjual, sedapat nak berjual. Kesian je lah, memang mengganggu pendapatan bagi orang yang kos rendah lah. Kesian juga.
Bazar Ramadan ditutup itu rasa macam dulu lah. Si meriah, kurang lah. Macam tahun lepas lah, macam tahun-tahun lah.
Rasa si meriah lah, sebab biasa nakah meriah. Tapi bila dah sedar macam tu, datang sum je lah, sunyi lah rasa. Si biasa lah.
Perasaan kami sedar bazar Ramadan tu sangatlah sedih sebenarnya, sebab kan last year dah sedar bazar sebab COVID nak, so kami expect tahun tu adalah bazar, jadi agak sedih lah sebab sempat nak cari dah ABC kuih semua.
Every cloud has a silver lining. It has become our responsibility to adhere to the Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP, to curb the spread of COVID-19, and many has accepted this decision to ensure the safety for all.
Tahun lepas pun tak ada, tahun ini tak ada. Tak apalah, daripada penyebaran penyakit yang ada sekarang ni pun belum lagi tentu bagus.
Nak kata sedih, memang sedih lah sebab kita dapat mencari suasana sebelum tu lagi. Tapi kita mesti fikir positif side-nya juga sebab dah kata Bazar Ramadan tu, kita nak tahu bergelut-gelut lah kita nak.
Kami rasa sangat kecewa lah. Saya sebagai seorang peniaga yang bekerja sendiri, seorang suri rumah tangga yang memang pendapatan itulah yang saya buat untuk belanja anak-anak sekolah dan untuk belanja sendirilah. Memang
untuk pendapat kami, Bazar Ramadan ditutup tu rasa kami memang agak sedih lah, walaupunnya ditutup untuk sekali lagi, tapi untuk kebaikan semua, ia adalah suatu yang kebaikan yang bagus lah.
Perasaan kami sedih lah bila Bazar Ramadan ditutup. Tapi mek tahu ia untuk kebaikan semua, so mek rasa okey jalannya tutup sebab mun dibuka kalau mungkin ada kluster lain yang akan muncul.
On the other hand, a master plan for Mulu sub-district, including the sub-district administration office, would be drawn up to cater for the future development of this constituency. The mini township of Mulu sub-district will serve the needs of the surrounding villages and the tourism in Miri. The state government takes over the provision of infrastructure and facilities to cater for police, customs and immigration services in this tourist area.
Mulu tu adalah kawasan pelancongan, jadi mesti ada mini township. Kita plan dulu master plan dengan bangunan pejabat untuk jabatan-jabatan yang ada di situ. Mun banyak turis datang, tentulah sida immigration mesti ada, lihat pasport. Nombor duanya mungkin kelak ada custom mesti ada, daya polis mesti ada. Nah, ini jabatan-jabatan yang harus kita tempat di situ. Jadi kita mulahlah mini township. Kita akan pola master plan tu sibuh nunggu IPU lah kelak Sarawak macam malah.
The Chief Minister said Mulu's transformation was already underway. The state government provides the empowering infrastructure and amenities development under the Highland Development Agency and through other agencies. And 5 bases for the Sarawak Coast Guard's operations will be built under the state's jurisdiction and will mainly operate in gazetted marine parks. The base will serve to protect marine wildlife sighted in Sarawak waters.
Kawasan operasi adalah di Taman Laut Marine Parks yang telah diwartakan. Our gazetted marine park. Penguatkuasaan mengikut peruntukan di bawah Undang-Undang Wildlife Protection Ordinance 1998 dan juga National Park and Nature Reserve Ordinance 1998. Our marine park covers more than 1.2 million hektar. Dan juga kita akan menubuhkan 5 buah pangkalan untuk Sarawak Coast Guard akan dibina, iaitu di Kuching, Tanjung Manis, Bintulu, Miri dan Lawas di bawah rancangan Malaysia ke-12.
Recently, marine wildlife was sighted in Sarawak waters. The marine mammals that have been sighted included a sperm whale and common minke whale. Abang Johari said these creatures must be defended for the uniqueness of Sarawak waters. The Chief Minister said Sarawak Coast Guard will enforce laws under the state's ordinances that protect the region.
Sarawak Coast Guard akan menguatkuasakan undang-undang di bawah wilayah kita Sarawak. Antaranya ialah Ordinance Negeri khususnya State Fisheries Ordinance 2003, Forest Ordinance 2015, Wildlife Protection Ordinance 1998, National Parks and Nature Reserve Ordinance 1998, dan yang penting juga Oil Mining Ordinance OMO 1958.
In the same development, over 1,200 telecommunication towers will be built to increase broadband connectivity to the rural and urban area by 2022. The telco tower will be equipped with a device that enables connections of one point to another. Sarawak will build 600 telecommunication towers, while the Communication and Multimedia Commission will build another 686 towers under the Jendela initiative.
Tapi apa yang saya sebut di situ ialah signal ya, line tu lah yang important. Dan bagi kita negeri Sarawak, kita pun landscape ya. Kita pun Bukit Bukau tu mencabar. Termasuklah di Mulu tu lagi. Mulu lagi because you got a range of mountains and you have to identify the right alignment for your signal.
Despite the geographical challenge that Sarawak possesses, the state government will still implement this broadband connectivity initiative for the rural areas. The project will implement under the Sarawak Digital Economy Corporation, or SDEC. On to the next update. The Cebu Division Disaster Management Committee, or SDDMC, would team up with government agencies to step up monitoring works to ensure strict compliance with COVID-19 Standard Operating Procedures, SOP, at workplaces.
The 4 teams, which would be led by the police, would inspect business premises, industrial areas and plantations for SOP violations. SDDMC Coordinator Dr. Anwar Rapai stressed the importance of adhering to workplace SOP in order to avoid new clusters and reducing the risk of getting infected. The Jalan Maju cluster in Cebu recorded 3 cases as of yesterday.
Back to the Nightline with the COVID-19 development, as Sarawak has reported 2 new COVID-19 clusters in Beluru and Meradong today. The 2 new clusters were dubbed as the Jalan Bangunan Kerajaan cluster in Beluru, with 6 new cases reported, and the Sungai Kawi cluster in Meradong at 119 new cases. 332 new COVID-19 positive cases, along with 2 deaths, recorded in Sarawak today. The latest fatalities were recorded in Cebu, bringing the state's COVID-19 death toll now to 116. Meradong has topped the list of highest number of cases in the state at 121, followed by Bintulu at 48 and Miri at 43. Meanwhile, Dalat and Daro districts have turned to yellow from green status due to new local ease transmission. 1 and 4 new cases were reported in Dalat and Daro districts, respectively. The same development EMCO will be implemented at Kampong Serpan Laut in Asajaya and Sri Aman Prison and staff quarters in Sri Aman starting tomorrow until April 21. However, the EMCO that was imposed at Kampong Chupa in Siburan Serian will end on April 9. Following the next news, as the upgrading of school facilities is included in the list of Rural Transformation Project, or RTP, of Pantai Damai this year. This will include repair works of school structures which are needed. For Sekolah Kebangsaan, or SK Sibu Laut, the prime needs would include clean water supply and restructuring works of multipurpose halls.
Laut dan ibu bapa SK Sibu Laut, mereka sebenarnya menantikan sekolah buka sebab kita dari segi masalah kehadiran tidak pernah bermasalah daripada sebelum pandemik lagi. Sebab ibu bapa mengutamakan pendidikan di di kawasan ini. Tambahan.
On the other hand, students and teachers of the said school has to use boat as a mode of transportation to school. These aspects has become the focus of governments to the said initiative to upgrade the conditions of schools. Earlier, Assistant Minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Religious Affairs, Dr. Abdul Rahman, with the Public Works Department, PWD, has been observing works at Kampong Sibu Laut area. This was highly important to increase the potential of the village, especially in the tourism sector, which will benefit future generations.
Walaupun mereka tidak mau menjadi nelayan sebelum masa, kerana mereka ada kerja lain, tapi mereka libat diri kerana potensi itu ada untuk dalam sektor pelancongan. Contohnya, program mereka ada perahu macam kita naik tadi. Perahu ini pada asalnya digunakan untuk menangkap ikan. Tapi hari ini bapa mereka tidak menangkap ikan lagi. Namun demikian, saya cadangkan kalau boleh perahu ini kita ubah sesuai untuk membawa pelancong, pelawat.
Senada dengan beliau, Ketua Kampung Sibu Laut Senep Yasin turut menyatakan harapan agar pembangunan di Sekolah Sibu Laut dilakukan secara berterusan.
Di Kampung Sibu Laut terdapat banyak produk-produk yang harus kita pertengahkan seperti lobster dan ikan-ikan masin dan kuih tradisional. Semenjak pandemik tu barangnya akan tersekat sikit. Tapi alhamdulillah generasi kedua yang kerja di bandar dapat promote, pulang ke kampung dapat promote untuk berjual secara online. Dan alhamdulillah barang yang kami stok semua habis. Masa akan datang tu kelak, belia-belia kampung akan terus menolong mak bapaknya di kampung untuk promote barang-barangnya untuk jualan secara online. Kerana
And things are lighting up in Muka as 470 households in its remote areas are about to have electricity supply by this year.
The Sarawak government, through its Ministry of Utilities, is accelerating the delivery of rural electrification projects to ensure electricity supply for the whole state by 2025. About 340 rural households from 21 villages in the Muka, Balingan and Tanjung Manis districts have been lighted up under Phase 1 of the project. This year, another 470 households from 13 longhouses in Dalat, Matu and Daro districts will be connected to the state's electricity grid under Phase 2, giving them access to 24-hour energy. 11 other villages in Ulu Dalat and Matu will be connected to the grid by 2022. The electrification project is part of the initiative under the Accelerated Rural Electrification Scheme, or RES, by the state government to extend grid lines into the interior.
Meanwhile, Nestlé Malaysia plans to partner local restaurants and hotels to launch the food and beverage manufacturers' meat-free menu. The company said this will cater to a wider customer base, adding the response from restaurant chains has been encouraging. Nestlé Malaysia Business Executive Officer Yit Woon Lai said they will also integrate this menu into delivery platforms like AirAsia Food and Food Panda. According to the company, the plant-based facility here is Nestlé Malaysia's first such entity within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN region. The facility is the first in ASEAN and one of the only two in Asia. It's catered to the rising demand for plant-based food and will supply local demand as well as exports. Earlier, it was reported that Nestlé Malaysia has invested 150 million ringgit to set up the plant-based meat manufacturing facility. Last month, Nestlé Malaysia launched the product of the meat-free menu with the South Korean fried chicken restaurant chain Kyochon. And Malaysia is poised to record strong air traffic growth in the ASEAN region. The aircraft manufacturer Airbus is upbeat on Malaysia's quick recovery post the COVID-19 pandemic. This shows that airlines will have a strong role to play to resume and meet demand. Demand for air travel from the people will be higher in ASEAN region and regional airlines will have a strong role to play. Airbus Asia Pacific President Anand Stanley said on the global front, Airbus sees the recovery in activities picking up very quickly, especially in countries such as China, India and the US. He encouraged the opening of international borders after domestic travel resumes, at least at the ASEAN level. Stanley said this in order for regional traffic to start recovering quickly, followed by intercontinental or long-haul routes. Being a key country in ASEAN, Malaysia is well positioned to reap the benefits of the resumption in air travel. And Forbes has listed tycoon Robert Kwok as the richest Malaysian billionaire in its World's Billionaires List 2021. His estimated wealth even increased to 51.9 billion ringgit this year, despite the COVID-19 pandemic.
Dubbed the Sugar King, the 97-year-old businessman, however, saw a slip in rankings and is now the world's 171 richest man, compared to his position of 141 in 2022. There are a total of 16 billionaires in Malaysia, with Kwok listed under Hong Kong. Following him is Hong Leong Group founder Tan Sri Kwek Leng Chan, with estimated wealth of 40 billion ringgit. Other Malaysians billionaire in the list include Tan Sri T. Ananda Krishnan, Tan Sri Teh Hong Piao, brothers Dato' Lee Yo Chor and Lee Yo Seng, Tan Sri Kun Poh Kiang, and Kwan Kam Hom and family.
And a total of 20.25 million ringgit had been approved under the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture MOTAC to 103 museums this year, in hopes that it would benefit the said museums for repair and upgrading works in the tourism sector for visitings to be more conducive.
At the same time, this was to garner accuracy in historical facts when visiting museums. In the same development, there are 236 museums nationwide, with 22 of them under the Department of Museums Malaysia. Meanwhile, Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Datuk Nancy Shukri hopes that the product and services offered by the museums will be in line with enhanced information technology.
Ini kerana stigma segelintir masyarakat yang kurang peka dan melihat museum hanya sekadar cerminan peristiwa atau bangunan lama tempat menyimpan barang-barang antik perlu segera diubah.
The Department of Museums Malaysia is targeting 1.5 million visitors this year.
Welcome back. Now, 22 people were arrested for drug-related offences during an operation on Monday.
Dubbed Obstopis, the operation involved a total of 42 police officers at 3 different locations, namely Kampung Bintawa, Petrajaya, and Santubong. The operation was also meant to combat drug trafficking and drug abuse activities in the areas. In a statement, Kuching Deputy Police Chief Superintendent Mervin Lissa said 30 packets of the methamphetamine worth 1,967 ringgit was seized during an operation in Santubong. Meanwhile, 13 straw tubes of methamphetamine and 4 packets of Aramin 5 pills estimated to be 806 ringgit was confiscated from a 30-year-old in Petrajaya. 18 men and women aged between 15 and 45 in Kampung Bintawa and Santubong. The case is being investigated under Section 15(1)(a) of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952.
This is a story of a legend since the 1970s. Lee Fahmi is still relevant until today when this legendary establishment has brought new innovation in the exports of its products. Let's hear more on this journey. This legacy of this business, which first started as a family business, is now continued by Derek Chai, who left his job in China almost 20 years ago. He said taking on the research and development, or R&D, it was not an easy task to produce products to expand production in the company. Derek added producing new outputs of products needs time other than placing a standard or quality of local products which abided to the standard of Sirim to ensure products are high quality to meet the needs of consumers.
I think the laksa is the quite famous and quite popular food in Sarawak. So our company Lifami, we started to make this laksa bihun a few years before, and it was quite acceptable by the consumer, and the response was very good. So I think why not? We also make the laksa keropok, 2 years before. So actually I started this try this R&D, this laksa keropok quite few years already, but it wasn't work out well. So we keep trying. We kept trying this making this laksa keropok. And so 2 years before, so we keep trying to R&D every time. So finally it came out quite crispy and quite tasty. So we start to launch this laksa keropok.
Meanwhile, for the Sarawak market, Keropok Laksa Sarawak now has already reached the global market, such as China and Singapore.
Now we are main focus in Sarawak. We also selling at Sabah. And the response for the Laksa Keropok is quite good. So some of them brought our product, Laksa Keropok, and they courier themselves to West Malaysia and Singapore.
Wrapping up the Nightline with our local sports development as newly crowned All England Men's Badminton Champion 2021, Lee Zijia, 23, has some similarities with former world #1 player Datuk Lee Chong Wei. This was according to national badminton legend Datuk Misbun Sidek.
The National Junior Badminton Squad's technical director said comparisons could be made based on Zijia's capability and charisma, besides his personal traits in carving a career towards becoming the best player in the world. He told this to reporters at Istana Negara yesterday. Meanwhile, Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Al-Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al-Mustafa Bilal Shah and Raja Permaisuri Agong had graced the tea reception with the national badminton squad to the All England Open Badminton Championship 2021 at the Palace.
And that concludes TVS Nightline for tonight. And as always, thank you for tuning in to your local news tonight. Here with me, Shal Shamato, and have a good night and a better tomorrow.